There is a new ad format that I have fallen in love with, and it combines old ad format with a new way of doing it, and it's crushing right now. We're testing this on many different brands. We're even testing it for our own agency because we run ads to get leads as well, and it's working there as well. So I can have a lot of confidence when I bring this to you in the video that it's crushing, we're getting great performance from it, and it's even giving cheaper CPMs. Now, I know CPMs aren't directly correlated to sales, right? But when I get an ad that's consistently performing across many different verticals and has typically greater outsized returns than other ads, and number three, and it gives me cheaper CPMs, you can take it to the bank. This is something you must test for your brand. I'm gonna walk you through what the ad is and how we make it and how you should make it for yourself, but I want you to just keep an open mind when I tell you that this is actually much more simple than you realize. And what's even better is that for a lot of the brands we test this with, depending on the average order value, in some accounts, it's getting a 4x ROAS, which is highly profitable for a lot of those brands. So just some context. This ad, like I said, is working across many different verticals and niches. So here's an actual spend receipt of an ad right now. The ad set has just 3 of the exact same ads inside that ad set. And then we're just testing different variations, different hooks, but it's crushing, highly profitable. Now, at the very foundation of this ad, it has one core principle you must do to make this work. If you don't do this, the whole thing's not going to work. So make sure you do it. And at the very foundation of it is to tell a story. Now, I'm not talking about Instagram stories, the ad placement. I'm talking about it must tell a story. To do this ad placement really well, you must tell a good story. Now, I'm not the first person in the world to talk about this, but having tested this ad format several times, at the end of the day, it all comes down to the kind of story that you tell and how well you tell. Now, I just want to take a moment to tell you guys that there's really great resources to learn about storytelling. Now, go to audiobook, you can get those. I get nothing for recommending it, but they're good places to help you start conceptualizing what must be in a story. So Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller, pretty good book. Stories That Stick, fantastic book. Now, when it comes time to building a story for this ad format, which I'll show you guys in a second, I like to think of the story cycle. Now, this is like the story cycle that novels go through and that most great stories typically follow. For ads, sometimes you have to skip or condense things quite quickly. So I'm going to show you the ad here in a few moments, and we're going to come back to this so we can talk about what was inside that ad. Now, for us, when it came to making this ad format, sometimes we have to condense these or skip things, but as long as core pieces of a good story are there, it's going to work. Now, here's the moment you've been waiting for. What ad format? What is working right now so well? And it's honestly my favorite ad format at the moment. It is story carousels. That's what I'm branding it. Story carousels. It takes an old ad format that's been around for ages, carousels, but you tell a really great story inside of it. Now, the key here is pick one story, one thing you want to get across. Because if you try to inject too many main points you're trying to make in one story, it's going to fall flat. One story and one thing you're trying to get across. Now, the story doesn't have to be around the narrative of a person. It can just be a story around the point you're trying to make. For example, this is a real ad that my team made, by the way, where we're trying to get the story across to plant the seed in someone's mind that there may be something wrong with the milk they're buying from the store, right? What we do is we plant the seed. What is your store-bought milk hiding? Going back real quick. What we're doing is we're giving context. The context is actually in the form of planting a seed. The backstory is you don't have to educate someone on the backstory of store-bought milk. Everyone knows what store-bought milk is. That we're trying to sell a product here. And so what we're doing instead is in one fell swoop, in one image, we're planting the backstory, increasing the stakes, disruption, and creating an antagonist, which is a villain. The store-bought milk is the villain. Big pharma, big company is the villain, right? All in one carousel. Then throughout the carousels, we then tell the story is most store-bought milks contain less than 2% of nuts. Going back, disruption, antagonist, and over 11 ingredients. Now we're twisting the knife. Oh my gosh, store-bought milk only has 2% actual nuts in it, and it has 11 other ingredients I thought was all almonds. And then we layer that on by showing the actual conceptual layers of what goes actually inside of store-bought milk, right? To then sell a product. Why this works so well is in a carousel, which in a carousel ad, you only get 10 carousel cards. So you must make sure you tell your story within 10 carousel cards. But in one fell swoop, we are taking them from backstory, which doesn't need a backstory. Everyone knows what store-bought milk is. You don't have to educate what it is. To increasing the stakes, to creating a villain, which the villain is now store-bought milk, which is an amazing positioning technique, by the way. That's why it's working so well. We just completely deposition all store-bought milk, and this is a better alternative, to then telling them how they can have their own personal victory with this product. A few things you understand. Number one is the reason this is working well is because we did so much research to understand, one, how does this better align with against the alternative, which is store-bought milk. Also, understanding the customer, why they want store-bought milk. Why did they think store-bought milk was better than original milk to begin with? And typically a person like that is completely anti extra added fake ingredients, right? So we understood this because we go through very deep research process for our brands. And then we crafted a story narrative to talk about the story of store-bought milk and how it is the villain. Stores are the villain. Store-bought milk is the villain. This is why you need the product. That is the story we're trying to tell. So all we're trying to do is this ad has one purpose. We're trying to plant the seed that store-bought milk is hiding something. It's actually not as healthy for you as you thought. That's it. That's the whole point we're trying to make. And then we craft it. I couldn't put all the carousel cards in here, by the way, because I can't fit it on the screen, but there's 10. Now, why this works so well, because if you've been watching my channel for any amount of time, is because there's different awareness states. And if you want the most amount of scale potential, you need to unlock unaware. It's not covered in here, but I'm gonna tell you, one of the best ways to unlock the unaware awareness state is to use stories, tips, tricks, or secrets, okay? If you want, that is how you unlock the unaware state. So going back to this example, what are we doing here? Well, we're revealing a secret. The secret is your store-bought milk is hiding something, right? It just so happens that the visual, it creates curiosity, right? Because you had the picture of the mold there, which is important for this to work, by the way, that is how we're unlocking it. That is why it's scaling so well. That's why it's scaling in even great performance, why it's cheaper CPMs. It's because it's also highly engaging. People have to scroll through it. And the fact that people are scrolling through the carousel, Meta is rewarding that with cheaper CPMs because it's highly engaging as well. So that works well. Now I promised at the video that we're doing this in more than one way. Shoot, we're even doing this for our own agency. Our own agency is running this to get leads and it's crushing. Where for us, for example, we have the story carousel telling the story of how a giveaway brand went from $140,000 a month to $2.5 million. I didn't mention this earlier, but it's important on the carousel part is to tell a good story. You don't want to talk about how they can have victory too fast. Now, you only have 10 carousel cards and a carousel will do this, but from my experience, you don't want to introduce your product until like minimum carousel number 5, right? Because you want to take just enough time to tell the story, agitate the disruption, then introduce that there's a solution, which is and or a mentor, the journey, and the victory. Be really careful that you don't do it too fast. So for example, in this one, we don't introduce the product until 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Even in our carousel, we don't introduce us as the mentor, as a victory until carousel 5. So just take your time. If you introduce your product too soon, you didn't do a good enough job giving the backstory if you need one, giving the stakes, talking about disruption, talking about who the villain actually is to then reveal yourself. These are just critical pillars you need to tell a good story. So if you think about it, those carousel stories that I showed you were kind of each carousel card is covering these things, this and this and this, and then carousel 4 or 5, then we reveal the story. So a couple key points you understand to do this well. Number 1 is all these situations is we understand the customers so well. We understand what do they want, what do they secretly want, what are they secretly afraid of happening as well. For example, like the store-bought milk one, that's a horror scenario for someone who cares so much about their health and didn't realize that, oh my gosh, the alternative I thought was making me healthy is actually even worse for me, right? That's a really important to know. And then once you know that, then it'll become more clear, how can I then angle and position this? And in this case, if you're trying to unlock the unaware state, use stories, secrets, tips, and tricks as the introduction to funnel someone in. So that's why even in our agency's carousel card I showed you is we're using a story. We're not talking about us, how a brand went from $140,000 a month to $2.5 million. That is the story of what we did for a brand between April and June this year. So when you think about unlocking unaware state and you want to scale, try the carousel card. It's crushing for us. And by the way, I actually reveal this stuff every week inside of our internal mentorship group for e-commerce brands. If you're over $10,000 a month in revenue, the mentorship is an incubation to scale brands because every week we meet, I reveal marketing secrets that are working. We work one-on-one monthly coaching calls with me, plus access to all of our creative strategy playbooks, media buying playbooks, Google advertising playbooks, email playbooks, and a lot more. If that sounds like a good fit to you, make sure you click the link in the description and I'll see you in the next video.